March 15th, 2024. Today's top story is on Israel's next move, guys. Here is my redacted story of the morning. Israel says that it will relocate 1.5 million Palestinians to, quote, humanitarian islands before it invades the southern city of Rafah. Where are these humanitarian islands? That is unclear. The Associated Press reports that these islands will be, quote, in the center of the territory. So inside of Gaza, presumably. Many of those in Rafah are there because they were fleeing other areas in Gaza that were already attacked. How many more places are left to go? Israel says that it will move those in Rafah to, quote, in coordination with international actors, a key part of the military's preparation for its anticipated invasion of Rafah, where Israel says Hamas maintains 4 battalions it wants to destroy. Israel went ahead and targeted on alleged Hamas command centers on Wednesday, so just 2 days ago, which happened to be a UN food distribution center. At least 5 people were killed in the raid, including 1 UN staff member. So here we are on the UN website for United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian refugees in the Near East, guys. The top headline from March 13th, at least 1 UNRWA staff killed when Israeli forces hit the UNRWA center used for food and life-saving supplies. At least 1, UN staff member was killed and another 22 were injured when Israeli forces hit a food distribution center in the eastern part of Rafah in the southern Gaza Strip. Quote, today's attack on one of the very few remaining UN distribution centers in the Gaza Strip comes as food supplies are running out, hunger is widespread, and in some areas turning into famine. Every day we share the coordinates of all our facilities across the Gaza Strip with parties to the conflict. The Israeli army received the coordinates including of this facility yesterday, said the UNRWA Commissioner General Philippe Lazzarini. Since the war began 5 months ago, the UNRWA has recorded an unprecedented number of violations against its staff and facilities that surpass any other conflict around the world. Including Ukraine, obviously. At least 165 UNRWA team members killed, including while in the line of duty. More than 150 the UN facilities were hit, some totally destroyed, among them many schools. More than 400 people killed while seeking shelter under the UN flag. Tunnels have reportedly been found under the UNRWA facilities and installations used for military activities. The UNRWA staff have reportedly been mistreated and humiliated while in Israeli detention centers. The United Nations, its personnel's premises and assets must be protected at all times. Since this war began, attacks against UN facilities, convoys, and personnel have become commonplace in blatant disregard to international humanitarian law. I am calling once again for an independent inquiry into these violations and the need for accountability, added Lazzarini. So, that's right from the United Nations Relief and Works Agency website, guys. The UN, none of us are a fan of the UN. They also just approved how many more billion aid for the proxy war of Ukraine, USA, against the boogeyman of Russia. But, so the question is, is this all the truth? But I don't really see any reason for the UN to support the military-industrial complex, which they are doing, but at the same time lie about them being killed and mistreated. I'm just looking for the common sense center ground, guys. That's all we have to do is analyze the information and make opinions based on as much information as we can gather with an open mind, like a step back to the big picture. The big picture is really the military-industrial complex. And the big picture is, what is Israel's connection to that and the USA and the Jewish bankers, right? What is the full connection of all of history with the Rothschilds and the fractional banking? Just start going into history right from World War II. Oh yeah, on the similar story of the military-industrial complex, the EU, the European Union, guys, countries seal a $5 billion deal on military aid to Ukraine after weeks of disagreement. Here we go for more military. The agreement struck by ambassadors in Brussels will inject an additional $5 billion into the European Peace Facility, EPF, until the end of the year, which will come on top of the 6.1 billion committed since early 2022. 2022. The EPF gained prominence in the immediate aftermath of Russia's war as member states rushed to provide Kyiv with the military equipment kept in their national stocks. The facility partially reimburses the cost of these donations, allowing all countries from the largest to the smallest to chip in and help out. It is an, quote, off-budget, end quote, scheme because the EU's coffers cannot finance expenditure with military implications. But in 23, the EPF began to lose steam as stocks began gradually depleted and governments shifted its bilateral donations to Ukraine rather than collectively. The facility was effectively paralyzed in May after Hungary slapped a veto in retaliation for Kyiv's designation of the OTP Bank as an international sponsor of war. The designation was lifted months later after an intense diplomatic push from Budapest kept preventing the release of new 500 million euros to top up the mechanism. Meanwhile, a debate was launched to reform the EPF and make it more efficient, more predictable, and better tailored to Ukraine's war needs. I added war there. The talks, however, became entangled in political considerations and dragged on for longer than expected. Germany insisted on discounting the, quote, in-kind contributions, end quote, from the country's expected input, while France, supported by Greece and Cyprus, demanded the EPF be used exclusively to purchase weapons and ammunition inside the bloc, guys. There is the post on, they're all using the Twitter feed here. Deal. EU ambassadors agreed in principle on a reform of the European Peace Facility to support Ukraine with $5 billion budget for 2024, guys. That remains determined to provide lasting support for Ukraine and ensure that country gets military equipment it needs. Again, continuing the slaughter, guys, continuing to put all Ukrainian men, they're hunting for the men. The men are hiding, guys, the ones that are left. They're hiding. They can't go to work. They can't support their family. If they come outside, they will be picked up by the military, who doesn't just enlist them, but grabs them and throws them into the locked training facility for 1 month before throwing them to the front line to the meat grinder. And to finish off the military-industrial complex, let's talk a little bit about the environment. Here I am doing stories over the last few days about Trudeau's Environment Minister carbon tax, guys. They're raising the carbon tax by another 23% this April 1st, 2024. And it's no fool's day. Yet at the same time, they are supporting and sending our money from the carbon tax to go fund carbon war. Like war, guys, like massive amounts of pollution. If there's any amount of pollution, it's in the war machine, including the Nord Stream pipeline being blown up by the Biden administration, guys, which is one of the biggest environmental acts I could even think of. Releasing and destroying that whole pipeline, which then raised gasoline prices and oil price, or not oil prices, but prices for natural gas right across Europe, so people couldn't afford to heat their homes, and they're literally freezing, and they banned making fires. They banned fireplaces, and like in Canada, they make the cubic mini stove. So everybody's importing these stoves to Europe, guys, because they banned them from being sold in Europe. And here we have the Nord Stream pipeline. Guess what? Insurance firms in England are being sued by Nord Stream after refusing to cover the pipeline sabotage costs. The Switzerland-based energy consortium Nord Stream has launched a 400 million euro lawsuit against insurers, including Lloyd's of London and Arch Insurance. The contractual disputes relate to the ruptured pipeline Nord Stream 1 and 2, which were designed to transport Russian gas to Western Europe. After an underwater explosion in 2022, most of the infrastructure was damaged, causing energy prices to rocket in Europe, guys. Nord Stream is now suing its insurer, claiming that they failed to pay for damages after the incident. According to legal documents, the energy firm has estimated that the cost to dewater and stabilize the pipeline, to undertake a full repair and replace the lost gas inventory, amount to a sum between 1.2 billion and 1.35 billion euros, guys. Well, of course. So, the company Nord Stream has insurance, and the insurance payers are probably saying, no, we don't cover terrorist acts. We don't cover the U.S. terrorist acts. Sorry, you're out of luck. And of course, yeah. Oh, whatever, guys. We'll end the story there. So yeah, let's tax Canadians to death who make up, 4 or 5% of the world's energy pollution, say. And then we're going to go fund the military-industrial complex to blow up Nord Stream pipelines with NATO and can send rockets and war and push for nuclear war, the brink of nuclear war. Oh yeah, at the same time, let's tax the fuck out of Canadians. Ernie Racing News, guys. Out.